All right, everyone. Welcome to this brief introduction to Stata, a gentle introduction. I have opened up Stata here, and this is how mine looks. I know it varies a little bit based on whether you have a PC or a Mac, a little bit, but all the functions I'll use will be the same, and we'll be in class together to work on this. Notice I have version 15. I think we're already up to version 18, so mine's a little outdated, but does what I need it to do and will be similar to what you will do. This is the main screen here. This is your results window here. You can review on the left side here what what you've executed or what functions that you've performed in this review window. Once we load a data set, all the variables will load here in this right panel. And down here, we can see the properties of those variables themselves. And down here, this is an important window. This is our command window where we'll put in our prompts. Okay. Like Excel or like other programs, you can use these drop-down menus if you've used SPSS to execute certain functions to make graphics, to calculate statistics, and to perform other functions. What we're going to do in this class is I'm going to teach you how to write a do file. The advantage of this is it's going to be a file that will collect all the code that you will write to help execute all of your functions, okay? So that will look like this. This is my do file for today's class that you could open up and look at. You could save it under your own last name to practice with this. But here I notice I've pasted a lot of notes. Anytime you put an asterisk in front of a line of code, Stata will ignore that. You can type anything you want after an asterisk or after you put a slash and an asterisk and then close it up. So there's a way to do a single asterisk will just comment out that line of code. If you do a forward slash and an asterisk, it'll just go until it finds the end of that as asterisk and a forward slash. Then it will close that out and you can begin writing code again. Okay, so all of my notes are here and I'm going to walk through this with you and we'll just do kind of a gentle introduction to get your feet a little wet before we meet together for the first time and dive into it. So this is a do file. This is where we're going to record all of our work. And we are just going to use, notice here, this do button on the right side. We're going to use that to execute our analysis. And then we will go to the results window here to see what's happened. Okay. So I'm going to tell Stata that I'm using version 15 here. And then I need to tell Stata where it wants to look and where it's going to produce the results for me. Okay. So to do that, the easiest way to do that is to actually use the drop-down menu and to go into the file and change your working directory. And then for me, it's going to be in the summer course. I have a Stata folder. So for this summer's course, I have a Stata folder, and that's where I'm going to have everything live that will include all my data files and everything else that I'm going to perform my analysis with. So I'm going to choose not an individual file within here. Obviously, I want to choose just this Stata folder, and I'm going to hit choose. Now notice in my review window, it just performed a function called cd, which is change directory. And this is the line of code that it ran. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this line of code. And I'm going to paste it in my do file so I have it. Now, it had to wrap a little bit, so I'm just going to make sure that this is exactly as it is. But notice it's saying, okay, I'm going to change my directory into this summer Stata folder that I have. All right. And just going to pause the. Okay, sorry. I had a sneeze coming on. So I paused it for a second. So then what we could do is we've changed that. So now Stata knows to look in there for our files and it'll produce results. Everything will kind of live inside this folder. Now, what I want to do is I want to create a log file that's going to document in a text file everything that we do. It'll produce the results. It'll include the code that we're running. And so that's what I'm going to do here with a log file. And this is what you'll turn into me for your problem sets. When I ask for it, you'll turn in this log file that it produces. So you'll just use this code. Again, you'll just copy this code. This will be the code that you can use. You can change this to have your last name, but I'm just saying, okay, on May 15th of 2024, this is our introductory video to Stata. This is my last name. I want you to save this file as a text file, a .txt file, and I want you to replace any previous version of this file. In case I make more adjustments, I want the latest to be run, okay? So that's our log file. This line here, just in case I have a log file open, because when you use this log using, it opens that. This just captures anything that may still be open. It says close it down and let's restart. All right, this is just a code that keeps Stata from making you click more for your results. It just runs through all of your code, which you want. And then now I'm into loading a data set. And the command in Stata that we use to load a data set, which think about like an Excel spreadsheet, to load that in, you're going to just use the command use and then clear you use whatever that file is named. And it's going to be, it needs to be a Stata file, Stata dataset file. And then you'll do comma, and then the options after that. Clear just means clear out any other data that might be in there. Okay, so I'm gonna up until this point, I'm gonna run all that code. And to do that, I can either highlight it and hit this do file. Okay, or another way to do it would be to type the word exit, which is a command, and I could do the same, and it would do the same thing. It would stop right there on line 57. Okay. But regardless of which way I do it, I'm going to go over to my results window here. Notice that it changed the working directory. It created this log file. It opened it. It's running now. And it loaded the states 2008 data set. And when I come over to my variables, I see that I have a variable name here, as well as a label, what each of those means. And I can sort these different ways, or I can expand this to get a full sense of what's there. Okay, so I might be interested now in opening this data set. I might go through and just look at each of these variables and get a sense of what I have here. Okay, but our data are now ready to go. I'm going to go back to my do file and give you just some basic prompts that you can use in Stata. Stata can be used. I don't know if this is important to you. You don't really need to ever use this, but Stata can be used as a calculator. So if we were to use this command display 2 plus 2, I'm just going to go ahead and put it here in this command window. If I hit enter, notice it gives me the output of 4, not surprisingly. Ooh, let me, I'm going to set my preferences. Sorry, really quick. I want to make sure you guys can see this. Let's do results window. There we go. Now it's not so small. Okay, so display 2 plus 2, it gets us 4. Maybe we have, a longer equation that we wanted to run. Stata can calculate that as well. So Stata is it can be a calculator if you use this command display. Stata can show us the data set. We might want to see what it looks like. So if I hit this browse button, notice it looks very much like an Excel spreadsheet in some ways. We've got the variables along the top. We have each row, which would be an individual state, it looks like. We have an ID associated with that. And then we have all the variables and their associated numbers, okay? Over here, it's reminding us what those variables mean, what their labels are. So we can read through that. And it gives you the properties of those variables as you click on them, okay? So it looks like we have each of the states, all right? And all right, so that's a way to examine our data set. Now, we also might want to look at specific variables, and we could just type those in. And I can do the same thing, browse, and it gives me just those two variables, state ID and state. Okay, so you don't have to look at the whole data set. You can decide you just want to look at particular variables and do that. That's the browse command. Stata can help us describe our variables. So I'm going to use this describe short option. And you can see it tells us that we have 51 observations. There are 19 variables, and that's the size of this data set. Or I might just type the word describe in without the option short. And notice it's going to give us more information. It's going to break down each one of those variables, tell us how it's stored, and give us the variable label. Now, one thing about Stata is this results window is dependent when I run it, it's dependent on its actual physical size. So I'm on my smaller laptop today, so I'm like kind of expanding that out. It'll not wrap as much if you're able to expand this results window as much as possible. Okay, and then we can have it describe particular variables. So notice here, I just asked for ECS 103 and 131, and it just gave me those two, median household income for 2008 and the percent of the population that graduated from high school in 2008. Another way to see our variables to describe it is codebook will be very helpful to you, which goes through each one of these and it tells you more information. Notice we're getting for this variable per capita state and local government spending. You can see the range, the number of unique values, the mean, the standard deviation. We'll talk about all these things, what the values are at these different percentiles. So codebook goes beyond describe and giving you some statistics, descriptive statistics associated with each of these variables. And again, we might want that just for particular variables and we could name those. And then we just get it for this 103 and 131. Okay. Another one might be this look for command, look for income. All right. And it tells us another way to describe the variable based on the label. Okay, so if we can't remember what our variable includes income, we can do this look for command and it'll search within the label and find this ECS 103 because it includes income in the variable label itself. So that's kind of a handy way to search. Importantly, we can create new variables in Stata. So let's look at this variable of EDS 127, EDS 127. And again, let's use our code book, EDS 127. It's case sensitive. Okay, this is the percent of public school fourth graders proficient or better in reading. And notice the percentage is a number between 0 and 100. Let's say I want to convert that to the proportion. So from bounded by 0 and 1. Well, I can just generate a new variable by saying generate, describe this new variable. I'm going to call it the same thing, EDS 127, but add underscore proportion and divide that by 100. Divide that variable by 100. That's how it's defined. And if I run that, I now notice have a new variable here. And if we look at it, you can see that it is the proportion now. Okay. We might want, there's two ways to generate. Another one's egen. The egen command, we'll use these. Egen will allow you to do different functions like standardize that variable, which means bound it, have the mean of 0 and a standard deviation of 1. We'll talk about what that means in one of our lectures, but egen allows us to do that. So I can run that and notice it created another variable, the standardized value there. Okay. And we could browse that one. And you see that there's numbers, there's some negative numbers, there's some positive numbers. If we were to average these, there would be a mean of 0 and a standard deviation of 1. All right. Now, we can create graphics using Stata. And again, this is just more to show you, to demo what's coming, what we'll be able to do. We can create graphics. So we might look at a histogram, which is a univariate distribution of our variable. And we can see this is the percent who graduated. It's coming. Hopefully. Taking a while. Let me try again. Something went wrong there. Come on, graph. Huh. I'm gonna pause this while it's loading. Okay, it took a minute to load, but this is the histogram. That's that univariate distribution. In this case, the variable is the ACT average composite score from 2009. You can see the students that received around a 19 and those up towards a 24. Okay. We might want to see, instead of this bin, we might want to see how many students are at each of these values. We can run that. I had to hit graph editor for some reason, then it came up. But you can see there were 5 students with this score, 5 students at a 20. It looks like 8, 7, maybe 13. Anyway, you can get the numbers here. And we might look at scatter plots. We'll talk about when to use scatter plots. So this is the relationship between 2 variables, where we have the percent of public school 4th graders proficient or better in reading and proficient or better in math. And you can see that positive correlation. So as they do better in math, they tend to also do better in reading. It's not perfect, it's not on a line, but it's definitely, there's some noise around that. But in general, it's a pretty clear positive relationship there. And we can see another one here between poverty rate and percent of proficient or better in reading. So again, as the poverty rate goes up, we tend to find on average that kids aren't doing as well. Proficiency goes down. All right, we can summarize information. So summary statistics, this will be the observation numbers, the 51 states, the mean on this variable of 4th graders proficient in reading, the standard deviation, and then the lowest score and the highest score, the min and max. And if we want more information, we can hit detail and it gives us the percentiles and some other information on variance and skewness, so shape, kurtosis. And we won't get too deep into those. This will mainly stick with means and standard deviations for this class. All right, and finally, remember we talked about all those statistics, we can calculate those. So I'm just going to give an example with correlation here. We can see the correlation between the 4th graders that are proficient in math and reading. You can see that, remember that scatter plot we saw, they were pretty close. Well, it's 0.9. 1 is a perfect positive correlation. This is 0.91. So pretty close to 1. And we can do another one here with our relationship between proficient in reading and poverty rate. You can see it's negative. So as the poverty rate goes up, the proficiency goes down, and that's negative 0.68. All right, so we'll talk about what those mean. But this is Stata. It's just telling us these different things. So if we go back to the do file, Stata can show us a data set. It can be a calculator. It can show us a data set. It can describe our variables. We can create new variables. We can create graphics. We can summarize information. And importantly, we can calculate statistics and run statistical tests. And there are lots of them. All right. And so all of this is just a gentle way to show you that we'll be using this tool to help us throughout this class.